Let me ask you a question. Are you living at the level you know you're capable of, or are you settling? Because deep down, you already know the truth. There is more strength in you, more courage, more potential, and 2026 doesn't need to be just another year on the calendar. It can be the year you redefine who you are. Transformation doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you decide, right now, that you are done playing small. Today, I want to give you 3 steps that can change everything if you apply them with intensity, honesty, and commitment. Step 1, Shanji, you are stay. Yao you are ENRGI SHPS. Yao you are LIFE. Your life is not controlled by your circumstances. It's controlled by your state, your emotional, mental, and physical energy in any given moment. Think about it. When you feel strong, focused, and alive, problems feel smaller. But when your energy is low, even small challenges feel overwhelming. So if you want a better life in 2026, don't start with goals. Start with your energy. How do you stand? How do you breathe? What do you focus on every day? Your body is not just something you live in, it's the vehicle of your success. Move with purpose. Feed your mind powerful questions. Train yourself daily to shift your emotional state on command. Because when you control your state, you control your decisions, and your decisions shape your destiny. Steep tuan kie shanji our story, the mayan and yao yu givevr wei chine ji. Every human being lives by a story. Some people say, "This is just how I am. I've always been unlucky. It's too late for me." But that story, it's not the truth, it's a habit. The moment you change the meaning you give to your experiences, you change your life. Pain doesn't destroy people. Meaning does. If you believe your struggles made you weak, they will. If you decide they made you stronger, wiser, unstoppable, then suddenly your past becomes fuel instead of a prison. In 2026, stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Start asking, "How is this happening for me?" The quality of your life is the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Change your story, and you change who you become. Step 30R. AC. Yo you are standardis. You. Tol yarda defenus yo you. This is the most important step of all. Your life will never rise above the standards you set. You don't get what you want. You get what you accept. If you tolerate excuses, you get excuses. If you tolerate average, you get average. If you tolerate disrespect from others or yourself, you get more of it. The moment your life changes is the moment you say, "This is no longer acceptable." Not next month. Not next year. Now. Raise your standards for how you treat your body, how you use your time, how you speak to yourself, who you allow into your life. When you raise your standards, your behavior rises to meet them. And here's the truth most people never realize. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with who we believe we are. Decide who you are in 20 or 26, and then live in a way that makes that identity undeniable. Final me SSAG. Becoming your best self is not about perfection. It's about progress with power. Change your state. Change your story. Raise your standards. If you do these three things, not once, not occasionally, but daily, 2026 won't just be a new year. It will be the year you finally step into the person you were always meant to become. The question is not, can you change? The question is, will you decide to change today? Because your best self isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for a decision. Your energy is the invisible force shaping everything you experience in life. Long before circumstances change, before results appear, before opportunities show up, your energy sets the direction. Every decision you make is influenced by how you feel in the moment. When your energy is strong, you think bigger, act faster, and respond with confidence. When it is weak, you hesitate, doubt yourself, and see obstacles where none truly exist. This is why two people can face the same situation and get completely different outcomes. One rises, the other retreats, not because of talent or luck, but because of energy. Energy is created by what you focus on, how you move your body, and the meaning you give to your experiences. What you focus on expands. When your attention stays locked on problems, fear grows. When your attention shifts to solutions, possibilities begin to appear. Your body is constantly sending signals to your brain. The way you stand, breathe, and move can instantly elevate or drain your emotional state. Small physical shifts can create massive internal changes, turning stress into strength and hesitation into momentum. Your inner dialogue also fuels or drains your energy. The words you repeat in your mind become commands to your nervous system. If you tell yourself you are tired, stuck, or overwhelmed, your body responds by shutting down. If you speak with certainty, purpose, and direction, your body rises to meet that command. Energy follows intention, and intention shapes action. Every habit you practice daily is either building or breaking your energy. What you eat, how you sleep, what you allow into your mind, and who you surround yourself with all contribute to your emotional fuel. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You rise to the level of your energy. When you learn to generate power from within, you stop waiting for motivation and start creating it on demand. Your emotional state is not something that randomly happens to you. It is something you step into moment by moment, whether you realize it or not. Most people allow their emotions to be controlled by outside events, by other people's words, or by circumstances they cannot fully control. When this happens, life feels unpredictable and overwhelming. But the moment you understand that you can influence how you feel, you regain power over your choices and your direction. Emotional control does not mean ignoring feelings. It means guiding them with awareness and purpose. Every emotion begins with focus. What you consistently think about becomes the emotional environment you live in. If your attention stays on what is missing, what went wrong, or what might fail, your emotional state naturally drops. When you train yourself to shift, focus toward progress, learning, and opportunity, your emotional state begins to rise. This shift is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing where your mental energy flows. Your physiology plays a critical role in emotional control. The body and mind are not separate systems. When your breathing is shallow, your muscles tense, and your posture collapses, your emotional state follows. When you breathe deeply, move with intention, and hold your body with strength, your emotions begin to change. These physical adjustments send immediate signals to the brain, creating clarity instead of chaos. Language is another powerful lever. The words you use internally shape how intense or manageable an emotion feels. Saying, "This is destroying me," creates a very different emotional response than saying, "This is challenging me to grow." One creates pressure and fear. The other creates focus and resilience. Daily emotional mastery comes from practicing these shifts until they become automatic, allowing you to respond to life with clarity rather than reacting from habit or impulse. The story you tell yourself is the lens through which you experience reality. It quietly shapes your expectations, your confidence, and the actions you take or avoid every single day. Most people never question their story because it feels familiar, and familiarity often disguises itself as truth. But your story is not who you are. It is simply an interpretation you have repeated so often that it feels real. When you begin to challenge that interpretation, you create space for change. Every experience in your life carries no meaning on its own. Meaning is assigned by you. Two people can go through the same failure, the same rejection, the same loss, and walk away with completely different beliefs. One decides it proves they are incapable, while the other decides it proves they are resilient. The difference is not the event. It is the meaning attached to it. The meaning you choose becomes the emotional fuel that drives your future behavior. Your identity is built from these repeated meanings. When you say, "This always happens to me," or "I'm just not that kind of person," you reinforce a narrative that limits growth. These statements feel harmless, but they quietly shape your decisions, pulling you back into familiar patterns. When you interrupt that narrative and replace it with a more empowering interpretation, your behavior begins to shift naturally. Rewriting your story does not mean denying pain or pretending the past did not happen. It means choosing to see yourself as someone who learned, adapted, and grew stronger because of it. Pain can either become a permanent label or a temporary teacher. When you change the story, you reclaim your sense of control and possibility. You stop living as a victim of circumstances and begin living as the author of your future. Creating momentum through clarity, belief, and intentional meaning. Pain is a universal experience, but suffering is optional. What determines the difference is not the intensity of the pain, but the meaning you attach to it. The human mind is constantly trying to make sense of what happens, and the explanation you give yourself becomes the emotional weight you carry forward. When pain is given a meaning of loss, punishment, or failure, it weakens your sense of control. When it is given a meaning of growth, learning, or preparation, it becomes a source of strength. Most people believe pain automatically limits them, but pain itself is neutral. It does not define your future unless you allow it to. The mind looks for patterns, and when pain is linked to a negative identity, it begins to shape decisions, relationships, and self-belief. You start protecting yourself instead of progressing, avoiding discomfort instead of expanding. This is how pain turns into a long-term obstacle rather than a temporary experience. Meaning has the power to transform emotional intensity. When you see pain as something that happened to weaken you, fear and hesitation grow. When you see it as something that happened to prepare you, confidence begins to rise. The event does not change, but your relationship to it does. That shift alone can unlock energy, focus, and resilience that were previously trapped in resistance. The questions you ask yourself in moments of pain determine the meaning you create. Asking, "Why did this ruin me?" leads to helplessness. Asking, "What did this teach me?" opens awareness and direction. Your mind will always answer the questions you consistently ask, so choosing better questions creates better emotional outcomes. When meaning shifts, pain loses its power to control your behavior, and instead becomes a source of insight, discipline, and inner strength that shapes how you move forward. Your standards are the invisible rules that govern your life. They determine what you accept, what you reject, and what you consistently experience. Most people confuse standards with goals, but they are not the same. Goals are what you aim for. Standards are what you live by. You may have ambitious goals, but if your standards are low, your behavior will always fall back to what feels acceptable. What you tolerate becomes your normal, and your normal becomes your future. Every area of your life reflects the standards you have set, whether consciously or unconsciously. The quality of your relationships, your health, your work ethic, and your self-respect all reveal what you have decided is acceptable. When you tolerate excuses, they multiply. When you tolerate being drained, you stay exhausted. When you tolerate disrespect, it becomes a pattern. Change begins the moment you decide that certain behaviors, from yourself or others, are no longer allowed. Raising your standards requires clarity and emotional leverage. You must clearly define what you will no longer accept and associate enough pain with staying the same that change becomes necessary. People rarely change because of inspiration alone. They change when the discomfort of staying where they are becomes greater than the discomfort of growth. This decision creates a shift in identity, where your actions begin to align with who you choose to become. Standards shape behavior because human beings are driven to stay consistent with their self-image. When you see yourself as someone who values discipline, respect, and excellence, your choices naturally follow. You stop negotiating with old habits and start acting from a higher expectation. Life does not rise to your wishes. It responds to your standards. And when those standards rise, everything you consistently experience begins to change. Your identity is the foundation of every decision you make, whether you are aware of it or not. You will always act in a way that feels consistent with who you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will find reasons to hesitate. If you see yourself as someone who is capable and driven, you will look for ways to move forward. This internal image quietly directs your behavior long before logic or motivation comes into play. Most people try to change their results without changing their identity. They focus on new habits, new goals, or new strategies. But when pressure appears, they return to old patterns. This happens because behavior that conflicts with identity creates internal tension. The mind naturally seeks alignment, and it will always pull you back to what feels familiar. Real change begins when you redefine who you are and what you stand for. Identity is shaped through repeated decisions and the meaning you attach to them. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your identity strengthens. Every time you break one, it weakens. These small moments accumulate, forming a self-image that either empowers or limits you. When you consciously choose actions that reflect strength, discipline, and commitment, your identity begins to shift in that direction. Your destiny is not something waiting for you in the future. It is created through daily choices driven by identity. When you decide that you are someone who follows through, who grows under pressure, and who takes responsibility for outcomes, your behavior aligns naturally. You stop forcing change and start becoming it. Identity-driven action creates momentum, and momentum creates results that feel inevitable rather than accidental.